Harry Maguire is leaving Manchester United for £30 million. Now, this is a fascinating story, isn't it? It's so layered, and on a particular level, it's actually fairly sad. Because if you think back to just after the World Cup in 2018, Harry Maguire was the most in demand centre back in English football. He had everything we thought. Powerful in the air, that determination, that will to win, firm in a tackle, hungry for success. And I think his performances at the back suggested that he was capable of stepping out of defence and picking a decent pass. At one point in time, we thought he was the total package. He was a good bloke. He had the right amount of edge. Think about his behaviour in that rather fiery game. It was wonderful, wasn't it? Against Colombia. The way that he became a meme. Do you remember when he had his arm delicately poised on the hoardings, chatting up those 3 goals, one of whom he ended up marrying? He seemed to be the perfect package. And the biggest, best football clubs in the world were all after him. That doesn't sound right, does it? But I promise you, it's not an exaggeration. I promise you that Pep Guardiola thought that Harry Maguire was the man to replace Vincent Kompany at Manchester City. That's true. Pep Guardiola had organised a situation where Man City had bid 70 million quid. They were also talking about maybe Otamendi going the opposite direction, Mangala going in the opposite direction to make the deal happen. That is how keen Pep Guardiola was for Harry Maguire at Manchester City. It just doesn't ring true anymore, does it? It just doesn't feel like that can be true, but it totally is. When Ole Gunnar Solskjaer eventually signed him for Manchester United fans were over the moon. Football thought that Manchester United had got their pivotal centre-half, a centre-half that they so desperately needed, a centre-half that all of their success over past years has been built upon an excellent defence, whether it's Vidic, Ferdinand, whether it's Bruce Pallister, whether you go back in time, it's always that. There is always that fulcrum at the back that dictates the tempo and sets the tone. And Harry Maguire, it felt like he was going to be that for Solskjaer. Remember, Solskjaer had prioritised Maguire over Nathan Ake, over Kalidou Koulibaly, over Toby Alderweireld. Maguire was the man. And now he is going to West Ham United, which just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I understand why Maguire will go. You know, there is a tournament in Germany this time next year. I think England are capable of lifting European silverware in Berlin in 2024, and Harry Maguire does need to play football to be part of that. But for Manchester United, you think about what this means, what this represents for their haphazard approach to transfers. You know, at one point, we would always flag Paul Pogba, wouldn't we, for being a ridiculous signing, you know, having the player, letting him go for free, spending a load of money on him, letting him go for free again. But this, it really does show us quite how poor, and this transfer in itself is indicative of the wayward strategy that Manchester United have had to transfers over recent years. And in fact, I think you could argue that part of the reason it didn't work for Maguire, there are many reasons. It's so layered. There are so many things to dissect here. But one of the reasons why it didn't work is because another example of a wayward signing, Cristiano Ronaldo, basically undermined him. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo had told Ralph Rangnick, I do not want him in the team. You're on a hiding to nothing when arguably the best footballer to have ever lived tells the manager that you aren't welcome in the team. It's incredibly undermining. When you are the captain of that team, it's an armband that weighs very heavily on him. And ultimately, I feel like Harry Maguire was never that good to play for Manchester United. But, you know, he is a really good player. I think it gets lost quite how good he can be. You know, he was never good enough to be the world's most expensive centre-back or captain of arguably the most famous team in the world, the most iconic team in the world, Manchester United, what that represents, what that armband represents, following in the footsteps of some of the greatest footballers to have ever lived who have worn that armband. And he definitely wasn't that because he wasn't that good. You know, Wayne Rooney was that good. Eric Cantona was that good. Brian Robson was that good. But when you are that player, when you are the captain of Manchester United, when you are the world's most expensive defender, there is a scrutiny that comes with that. And, the appraisals that you get are often more extreme and crucially miss out the context that they ought to. And that is where Harry Maguire has massively suffered. Wayne Rooney, because he was one of the best footballers I've ever had the privilege of watching, he could ride it out. He could wear the armband. He could fall out with the press. He could even fall out with the club and the fans. But the talent would always rise to the top. Maguire was never that good, but he was still a really good defender. He's still a really good player. He isn't that level, but I think he'll do a very good job at West Ham. And I actually think it's an astute signing for West Ham United. Because when you think about who Harry Maguire is, he's such a complex individual, isn't he? Like, who is Harry Maguire? What does Harry Maguire represent to you? I think some people see Harry Maguire as, say you're an England fan. If you're an England fan and you dedicate your life to following England to qualifiers and tournaments, or you're Gareth Southgate, actually, even easier. You're Gareth Southgate. What does Harry Maguire represent to you? He is an automatic starter, not far off being the first name on the team sheet, and has actually been an ever-present in an England team that has routinely challenged for silverware and always made it to the later stages of every tournament he's been at. So that's what he is to you. To Eric Ten Hag, what was he? He was the captain of Manchester United. But he was also at times, fifth choice centre-back? They just don't marry up, do they? It's such a contradiction. How can you be this fulcrum of England, this starter for England, this heartbeat of England, this kismet for England, and yet being overlooked for Manchester United centre-back positions by Luke Shaw? In favour of Luke Shaw. And remember, Eric Ten Hag, God, that's delicious, sorry. Got a new coffee maker, very nice. I just can't work it out. You've got to think, Eric Ten Hag, a very good manager, one of the better managers in the league, a manager who came in and had pretty much got everything right since he arrived at Manchester United. He came in, and to his credit, he gave everybody a clean slate. And Harry Maguire started Eric Ten Hag's reign as Manchester United manager as centre-half. It looked like the partnership was going to be Lisandro Martinez and Harry Maguire. But Maguire squandered his place. There were those terrible 2 opening games. Do you remember? Brighton in the opening day and then Brentford, they were 4-0 down at half-time. That was Maguire. And then it got so bad that Eric Ten Hag was even trusting Luke Shaw to start in the centre-back role, in Maguire's position. And in big games as well. Like facing Erling Haaland, Luke Shaw was given the nod over Harry Maguire. Maguire came on in that game. I remember it. I was watching it with the lads. Maguire came on in that game as a stoppage time substitute. Luke Shaw, the left-back, started at centre-half. Manchester United were dealing with Erling Haaland. And they won the game. I just can't... This is such a big moment. I really think this is such a big moment for the trajectory of young players that we think are going to go on to such wonderful things. Because remember, Sheffield United, Hull City, Leicester, so many people thought he was going to be so good. Do you remember all that slabhead stuff? Like, he was loved, wasn't he? Slabhead was affectionate, by the way. That was a loving thing. England fans often sing for him, or they did. That's changed slightly. Even on his opening day, do you know, I just remembered his opening day at Manchester United, his debut for Manchester United. It was against Chelsea. Do you remember Lampard Morris's Chelsea? And Chelsea played really well that day. Tammy Abraham hit the bar and Chelsea got beat 4-0. Man of the match that day, Harry Maguire. And now look, it just really doesn't make sense. But yeah, this is it. So West Ham United have got themselves an interesting player. A player who could be, if they get the England version, they've got a great player. However, if they get the Manchester United version, the player that was sent off in Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's last game at Manchester United, in a 4-1 defeat at Vicarage Road, then he won't get in the team. It'll be Aguerd and Kurt Zouma. Can he muscle in? I think he's good enough. but it really hasn't been good lately. Like, you've got to think about he played 9 games under Eric Ten Hag. In 9 appearances under Ten Hag, he received yellow cards in 5 of those games, and then bookings in the FA Cup matches against West Ham and Fulham meant he missed the semi-final. Rafael Varane, on the other hand, his direct competitor, 3 yellow cards since arriving at Old Trafford 2 years ago. He's a good player, Maguire. He's just not that good. He's just not Manchester United quality. Does this work for him at West Ham? Do you know what I hope it does? I know that he's a good bloke, Maguire. And I know that this isn't sentimental and this isn't the place to do it, and romanticism in football, it's kind of neither here nor there, particularly when we're discussing a player like Maguire and where he's going. But I do know that he's a good bloke. Like, I know that he was really good to his community around 2020 when things were going wrong. And look, if it works at West Ham, they're in Europe, you never know. But there's a lot of jeopardy here, because if he gets this move wrong, he will not be starting for England. It will be Stones Colwell. But Southgate does love him, so I'm sure he'll be fine. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope you've appreciated or enjoyed it. If you have, please click subscribe. My name's Rory, by the way, if you're new. I talk about football a lot, so it'd be my honour to welcome you into this community. Let me know your thoughts. The second this video goes live, I will be in the comments. Let's have a chat. See what you think about Harry Maguire. Have a lovely day.